I wasn't born into money and I didn't marry rich, but because I took God seriously when he said that his word had everything that we need, I went from minimum wage to miraculous abundance simply by understanding this one story in scripture that encapsulates every move that it took me to get from paycheck to paycheck into prosperity. And no, I'm not saying that Jesus died so we could all drive Lamborghinis. However, if you want to honor God with your finances and have more than enough, not just for you, but for people around you, then I believe that you will be immensely blessed when you watch this video until the end and understand what God showed me in this single story that absolutely transformed my financial life. Our story begins in Matthew 25, and I am going to drop in the insights that God gave me while reading these passages that I have accumulated over the years. But I highly encourage you after the video to take time to read the passage yourself to get a full and thorough understanding of it. Verse 14 starts like this: For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them with his property. And this is where point one comes in. All money is God's money. It says entrusted them to his property. I don't own anything. I am just a steward. And understanding that one principle will change the way that you use money. Because would you be spending it as freely and as liberally and going into debt and doing all of these things if you truly understood that it was not your money to begin with, but money that you were given to steward for a purpose? People often look around and realize, oh, I don't have any fruit, but it's not because you never got a seed. It's because you ate your seed instead of actually allowing it to grow and flourish. And one of the biggest ways and shifts where we can start really tapping into what we have is to understand that what we have is given to us by God and is not our money to waste. It is our money to steward because we have been entrusted with it by God. Now, in verse 15, it continues and says, To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. Now, this is big because what does this show us? Not everyone starts with the same resources, and that is by design. So many people in our world try to fix inequality or inequity or whatever you would like to call it. But God said that in this case, it is by design. It's a feature, not a bug. And instead of comparing what we have to others, we are called to focus on maximizing our own potential and what God has given us, not look to the left and to the right of what God has given somebody else. And also, verse 15 continues to say, to each according to his ability, then he went away. Meaning everyone is given according to what God has created them and enabled them to do. Not everyone is going to have the same ability. God entrusts us with what he has designed us to handle, and he simply expects us to manage it faithfully. I like to think of all of us as different animals. You don't expect a bird to do the same thing as a fish, and you don't expect a shark to do the same thing as a lion or an elephant to do the same thing as a whale. These animals were literally created different, are designed to thrive in different environments, have different purposes. And a fish is never going to fly as well as a bird because it was not designed to. And this is why you may find yourself looking at what someone else has, looking at what someone else is doing, and maybe you even fancy yourself to try it. Maybe you go in their same job, go try their same business model, and it doesn't work for you. Well, that's because you may have been designed with a different gifting. And so we have to be really careful when we're praying about wanting what other people have, because we don't often have the ability to hold what they can hold. And what gives energy to someone else may drain a different person. And so the best prayer that you can ask God is, show me and help me to find through testing and taking risks what you have created me to do and to excel in the dominion and domain that God has created you to thrive in. Now, verse 16, so he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. Verse 17, so he also who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. Now, some interpretations suggest that these servants may have engaged in trading and that the other one investments. And this is an important distinction. I think it's important the fact that we don't really know. And this means that there is no right way to really grow your wealth or to have impact or success. And success is going to look different for everyone, again, depending on what their design is and what God created them to do. There are multiple ways to multiply. So do not let anyone tell you that it is better or worse to have a 9 to 5 or a business or invest in short term or long term or get into real estate or stocks. As long as you're being a faithful steward of your money, the budgeting tactic, the debt snowball or the debt avalanche, it doesn't matter. As long as you are being faithful, that's what it's about, not using a specific method. And this is something where if you stay until the end of the video, I'm going to give you access to the 3 secrets that I have personally used to make money multiply on autopilot without hustle, budgeting, or willpower. And I'll give you access to that if you stay until the end. But what you need to understand right now is that faithfulness is about taking action, not using a specific method. The other thing that we see here that I really like is it says that the one who made five, it says he went away at once. Is that he took action, and that's what success and creating income and wealth requires, and it requires taking risk. And so the first two servants, they took risk and they put their talent to work. And in business and investing and growth and whatever path you take, it is going to require some sort of risk and some sort of sacrifice, because that is a package that God puts your next level in. And if you try to play it safe, it will often, if not always, lead to stagnation. Now in verse 18 it says, but he who had received the one talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you guys. I mean, it is always the people with the most to gain that do the least. And it is always the people that have the least to lose that hold on to it so tightly. And it's such a paradox because you don't understand the fact that you're holding on to that little bit of money so tightly is the exact reason why you will never have more of it, because life begets life. I'm gonna make a whole video on that later, okay? But specifically for this context, what you need to understand is a hand that is open to give, that is open to invest, is also open to receive. But if you close your hand and you are not open to give, you are not open to invest, you're not open to do anything with that, then you will always also have your hand closed to receive. You cannot be open to abundance without being open to risk. And you cannot be closed off and have a scarcity mindset and then expect to receive simultaneously. Those two things do not coexist. And people who say, well, I can't afford to do it, I don't think you can afford not to, because you've already seen what not investing gets you. You've already seen what not managing your money well gets you. You've already seen what living life with a closed hand gets you. And let me ask you, do you want more of it? Is this what you want for the next 20 years, next 30 years, next 40 years, however long the Lord may have for you to live on this earth? And so if you think that you can't afford to do something, you're probably the prime person who needs to do it more than anyone else, right? And verse 19 says, now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Now, this is big because I don't think a lot of people see this here, but I saw it immediately by the illumination of the Holy Spirit. Consequences don't always happen immediately. It says, after a long time, the master of the servants came and settled accounts with them. The master didn't come for a long time. You see, you might eat a donut one day and you're fine. But 10 years from now, they'll catch up to you. Every little donut will catch up just one day at a time, just a little half a pound, a little 0.2 of a pound, and it'll all add up. And you may choose to be an unwise steward now, and you may miss out on a vacation. You might not drive as nice of a car. But what about 20 years from now? When your friends are retiring comfortably and you have to work that extra couple of years just to survive? If you're renting while others around you are owning multiple properties and being able to pass wealth to their children, if you lack discipline and the lack of discipline that you left has left you in debt and you don't have anything to leave behind for your children, or they're struggling because you never built a financial foundation and you shook your fist at your parents for not leaving you in a better position, now you're doing the same thing to your children, not breaking that generational cycle. And if your spouse resents you because financial stress has defined your marriage, because everything goes back to having to choose what you can spend money on. And worst of all, you stand before God and you have to be accountable. And although we will not be condemned, we will be judged. And God will come before us and we'll come before God. And he will ask you, what have you done with what I entrusted you with? Instead of multiplying it for his kingdom, will you be the servant who buried it? And if you want more on that, you can watch my other video I did, which is Child of God, Stop Wasting Your Life, where I go deeply into that. And if you need that wake-up call, that video is there for you as well. Now, verse 20, and he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. This is so good, you guys, because for those of you who are going to take this and move forward in abundance and really start to expand and multiply what God has given you, growth expands capacity. I will set you over much because what you have done with little. The servants who multiplied their talents were given more responsibility. And when you handle what you have well, your capacity expands and you are entrusted with more, whether in money and influence and impact, whatever that looks like. It can happen in so many different ways, but you get to graduate, you get to move to the next level. And that is an amazing thing to see the Lord continue to take you from faith to faith and from glory to glory. And I know some of you right now haven't experienced that. You feel like you've been stuck in the same level of life for the last years, maybe even the last decade. You feel like you've been spinning around and you're living the same life and you're like, Lord, where is my next level? Where is my next step? Where is my promotion? And I want to ask you, have you been faithful in your current position before you hold your hand out and ask for a promotion? Are you trying to get an increase off of something that you've never invested? And so many of us were praying for God to give us increase, but we haven't invested what he's given us. And that's not how it works, because that's my next point, which is wealth is not just a blessing, but it's a test. It's a test. And you may say, well, I'm not wealthy yet. I want you to know that if you're making over $30,000, no comment, I think something around that, around $30,000 a year, that you are in the 1% of the most wealthy people in the entire world. And so when people say, I think it's so funny, and people comment things, go, well, you rich person, blah, blah, blah. I say, if you have a phone that is $1,000, $800, $500, internet access, a roof over your head with electric running through your house and air conditioning that is keeping you cool, then you are wealthy. And so all the scriptures and the warnings to the rich apply to you too. And so does testing, okay? Because what does it again say? You have been faithful over little, so I will set you over much. Money and resources are not just a blessing. They are tests of faithfulness. And how you handle those small amounts will determine whether you will be trusted with more. Are you passing the test right now? Answer that question. You don't have to tell me, but you know, and God knows. And what can you do to shift that and to be a better steward? And maybe if you keep watching, you'll find some things out. So verse 22, and he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents, and here I have 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. So, wow, this is amazing, because faithfulness, not equality, determine increase. The master did not expect the one who he gave 2 talents to make 5, just like the one he gave 5. He only expected faithfulness. And so many times I think we get caught up and that we maybe feel a little embarrassed, a little ashamed, that we maybe feel like a little less than and like compare ourselves to people who are doing different things. But again, if you were a fish, you would never expect yourself to swim to the depths of a shark. But I think, and this is just an entirely separate video that I maybe get into. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear more about biblical hierarchy and inequality, because I think it's something that so many Christians misunderstand, and I think it leads to a lot of resentment and discontent. But like, God does not expect the same thing from you if he gave you 2 talents as he does from the person that he gave 5. And so your increase is not going to look the same, and that's not a bad thing, because God is not judging you based on an absolute number of, if you're not a millionaire, then that means you weren't faithful steward. That's not what God says. He simply expects for him to get a return on the investment that he made into you. And so your responsibility is not to match someone else's outcome, but it's to grow what you have been given. And this is another thing that we can take from this, is that multiplication is a kingdom principle. Everything in God's kingdom is designed to multiply. Faith and wisdom and wealth and disciples and even joy and peace, that all of it is designed to multiply. And those who understand and operate by this principle see continuous increase. And I also love that about God. He's not a God of addition. He's a God of multiplication. If you plant one seed into the ground, there's almost nothing that I could think of that you will get just one fruit. Everything that God has designed, he is intended to multiply. You don't just have the ability to make one child. You have the ability to make many. 2 people can bring forth 15 children into the world. And you see this over and over and over again. And again, just like in, oh, this is so good, just like in scripture, just like he doesn't expect everybody to multiply at the same rate, not every plant produces the same amount of fruit. Not every animal can have the same amount of reproduction. And so again, God has designed all of this intentionally, knowing what is best for that fruit and how much it needs to produce, knowing what's best for that animal, for that couple, and how much they need to produce. And he gives it according to his good purpose and will. Now, verse 24, he also who had received the 1 talent came forward saying, Master, he said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid. I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. I don't think you guys understand the impact of what is being said. And it's impactful in so many ways. But I'm going to pull out one point here, that most of the time, fear is not about not trusting yourself. It's about not trusting and truly knowing the character of God. What did he say? The man with 1 talent, he said, I knew you to be a hard man. what did he believe about the character of God that led him to have this fear, that led him to think that putting it in the ground and making sure nothing happened to it was better than trying to do something and risking failure? And how many of you are scared? And maybe you haven't ever thought about this. I don't want you to rush to answer, but I want you to think, I want you to pray. If you have through life, through the glitz and glam, through the expectations, through the comments of men, misunderstood what God is asking you to do. God is not asking you for perfection. God is not asking you to get it right or to know the beginning from the end. You see, all of those things are his job, right? And maybe you don't think necessarily that God is a hard man, but maybe you are scared of what failure may cost you. Maybe you're scared of where it may take you if you actually take that next step, or what he may call you to, or what he may call you from or out of, and you don't want to let it go. You don't want to give it up. And there's so many nuances here. And so we can be so scared of getting it the way that we want, that we tell God based on our actions, I would rather it come out the way that I want to or not do it at all. Because maybe the thing with you starting the business is not you going to go be a multi-billionaire and be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon or whoever else. Maybe you're going to learn something that's going to help you to be a better mother. Maybe it's going to take you somewhere where you're able to impact someone else's life and preach the gospel to them, but it doesn't turn out to be what you want it to be. Or maybe you do go, but then you have to leave some people behind. You have to leave some comfort behind. You have to leave some things behind that you don't really want to give up right now. And so I want to ask you, are you viewing God's character in a way that you don't think he loves you enough that where you end up will be the best place for you to be? Because I've been there, and I want to encourage you to walk in faith, to walk by faith. And that leads me to the next point, which is fear leads to stagnation and loss. You have to understand that you bearing your talent will cost you. The servant let fear paralyze him, and as a result, he lost everything, which you'll see in the next verse. And fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of criticism leads to inaction, which is the real danger, not trying and failing. And in verse 26, we continue. His master answered to him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and I gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming, I should have received what is my own with interest." And so what is the master saying here? Inaction is worse than failure. You wicked and slothful, you lazy servant. The master was not mad that the third servant lost his money. He was mad that he didn't do anything. He said, you could have done the bare minimum of putting my money in a high yield savings account, okay? And letting it get some interest, but you did nothing. And again, trying and failing is better than doing nothing at all. I just think we have this expectation. Again, we misunderstand God's character if we think what he expects from us is perfection. He doesn't. He doesn't. What he expects is for us to trust him and take the next step despite not seeing the entire staircase. Okay. And action, even imperfect action, will always lead to growth and to him sanctifying us and teaching us whatever he would have us to learn along the way. And we also see here that success is not just about action, but it's also about intentions. He said, you knew. The master said, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, that I gather where I scattered no seed. So the master called the third servant out for knowing what to do and not acting on it. If you can't say amen, say ouch. Okay, that's what Vody Bakum says. If you can't say amen, say ouch. Okay, and knowing the right thing to do without taking action, and you have that hole of wasted potential where you know it, everyone around you knows it and can see it and talk about how good you could be and the things that you could do, and it's like, how much more will that hurt? Sitting in bed at night after night. Again, you're in that same cycle. If this is your life, and this is what you are doing, you are burying your talent. Okay. And again, we see another principle, which that God's kingdom operates on multiplication, not just maintenance. It says, you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. God is saying, I expect growth, not just preservation. And if you are in a season where you haven't been growing, I hate to tell you this, but you have been dying in every area of life, finances, relationships, skills, influence, whatever it is. If you are not growing, you are dying. There's no neutral for a plant. There's no neutral. They cannot be stagnating. They're either continuing to grow or their leaves are turning colors and their petals are falling down and they are dying. And so verse 28, this breaks my heart, but it's so true and we need to hear it. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. Wealth transfers to the faithful. Resources flow to those who use them wisely. Money, opportunities, and influence shift towards people who are responsible, who take action, and who multiply what they have. And people love to say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, but I think they'll be very surprised. And maybe you're surprised here to find out that that's by design. That is by design. Because what are people with nothing and who have no intention of doing anything with the things that they have need with more stuff to do nothing with? Explain that to me, because people may say, "Oh, that's not fair," or maybe, but it's like no. And it said He gave them a long time. How long has the Lord been patient with us? How long has the Lord been gracious and kind and merciful to us, and held our hands and reassured us and showed us the path until He says, "I'm going to take this from you and give it to someone else who's going to use it," you know? And that's why we have to be so careful and so intentional, because again, even if we fail, that's not the problem. The problem is if we are not actually trying. Okay. And verse 29, for everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Abundance mindsets create more, and scarcity mindsets shrink. Those who act in faith and abundance thinking will receive more opportunities, while those who operate in scarcity and fear lose whatever they have. And this is intentionally happening based on God's design, but this is also just a natural consequence in action. That if you have faith and abundance and you're viewing the perspective through the lens of expecting good to happen to you, expecting for doors to open, expecting for opportunities to come to you, and then you're willing to take those opportunities, you're naturally going to grow. And the person who is in scarcity, who's holding on tightly to what they have, will never invest, will never give, always burying it in the ground, and is so scared to do anything, they are naturally going to lose what they have. Because even if you just sit it in the bank at this rate, with the way the inflation is going, you will lose your money. And if you put $10,000 in the bank back in 1980, 1970, what that could have bought you, you will be able to do practically nothing with it now that you could have done with it then. And the rich get richer because they move, they invest, and they grow, while the poor get poorer because they hesitate and they hold back. And then verse 30 says, and cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And what does this mean? Judgment comes to those who do nothing. The real failure was not doing anything with what he was given. We are not called to simply exist, but we are meant to work and to grow and to create with what God has given us. And I talk more about how you can do this. That training that I mentioned is right in the description, where I go over the 3 secrets to making money multiply on autopilot without hustle, without budgeting, and without willpower. And so I encourage you to watch that, because I divulge these secrets and explain to you exactly what difference this makes from the people who are succeeding, and how the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And these are principles that anyone can use to change their life today. And the parable of talents, though, is more than about money. The story does apply to finances, but it reflects a broader principle of life, that you have to use and grow what you have, and you will be given more. And if you bury and hoard it and refuse to act, you're going to lose what little you have. And this applies to your skills, to your knowledge, to your influence, to your faith, to your opportunities, to your relationships, and to your wealth as well. The key takeaway that I pray you get from this is that God rewards action, faithfulness, and wise stewardship. And that if you use what you have in boldness and in faith, then you will see an abundance and an increase in every area of life. If this video was for you, please let me know in the comments. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more faith-based abundance content. And I'll see you in the next video. Capsulate, capsulates